Hey, this is part two. Okay, I'm back. I'm trying to find the right spot where I can sit and talk to you guys to finish part two. I love sitting out here in my garden. I've got a little greenhouse here that my kids got me for Christmas. I could sit in there, and I've done it before, but I want to sit out here amongst the trees. I always come back from my walk with my dog, and I have that second cup of coffee. I'm gonna set my phone right here. Hold on while I grab my coffee. Okay, so I've got my coffee, and this bush behind me is a butterfly bush, and I call it my dog Keeper's butterfly bush. He loves this tree, but for the longest time when he was alive, we didn't think it was going to survive. It got about as tall as maybe to my waist because he loved to mess with it, lay in it, walk past it with his big tail. He was a big, gorgeous golden retriever, and he passed away not this February, but the last February of cancer. And it's a long story, that cancer, #1 killer of dogs. And I would say of people. And I think it's because we allow things outside of us to infiltrate us, our minds. And when we don't feel good in our mind, what comes next? Our bodies. Because when you're not functioning properly, you can't eat, you can't sleep, you start grabbing for things that aren't good for you to medicate. And this can be food, alcohol, drugs. Oh, the squirrels. Both my dogs are out, little dogs. I've got Eddie's a little terrier mix, and Finn is a little chihuahua that belongs to my daughter. Well, he belongs to us, but my daughter, when she worked at the vet hospital, rescued him. But when we allow the outside forces to dictate our lives, we stop valuing ourselves. What is my talk about today? But valuing yourself. And when you don't, you allow life and all the drama and chaos to take you by the hand and dictate your life. And that is a big fat no-no. That's when you get cancer. Stress kills. Cancer. Chaos. When you don't feel good on your stomach. Upset. Ridicule. Bullying. Look at what's happening right now in our world. I don't make a habit of watching the news, as you know, but I do hear. Being that I'm on YouTube, I see things by way of shorts, by videos. I see how that people don't like this saying, but it remains to be true. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people kill people because they want to be heard and they want attention. And like I told you about this little boy that I used to take care of in my classes as a yard duty. I was kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way up until 6th. You could just see it. Kids that were neglected, kids that were not loved, kids that were not valued. So I'm telling you that you must value yourself. You will accept things that you wouldn't normally accept when you are undervalued. And that's what I was telling you guys about me. But I was a little kid, and at an age where you're looking to your higher ups, your parents, #1, your grandparents, and teachers. Who are you with when you're not at home? You're at school. And I had some of the most loving teachers I could tell you right now. Mrs. Adams in the 2nd grade. Love that lady. Laughed, throw her head back and laugh, kind of laugh. I had a 5th grade teacher, who thought, who made me feel like I was the only student in class, and she helped me to feel that the sun rose and set in me. And in that classroom, I could do anything. In fact, I wrote a play. It included music, and I chose the kids in my class to play the parts. But I was the kid who wanted to act, who wanted to sing. And then I had this 4th grade teacher that I was telling you about that really was not a happy person. And it was her mission to hurt me and big time undervalue me and disrespect me. And so when my mother came to school in between her morning job and her, her day job and her evening job, and I can remember nothing happening, because on the way home, all that was said was, you have to try harder. You have to work harder, Teresa. And I'm sure I cried myself to sleep. And that's when I can remember really starting to withdraw from life. Okay? When I got to be around 12 and 13 is when I knew I wanted to write. And my mother worked at a radio station, and it was a country music radio station. As I said, we were in the South, and they were allowed to play only country music. Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Loretta, coal miner's daughter, Loretta Lynn. I couldn't think of her name. Dolly Parton. I can remember seeing Dolly Parton on the Porter Wagner show when she was 21, and thinking that she was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. It's like a doll. Loved the show Hee Haw. Would watch a lot of Hee Haw with my dad's parents. I refer to them as his parents because while yes, they were my grandparents, they didn't act like grandparents to me. Another story for more. We were very disconnected. But I started to withdraw, and my mother worked at this radio station, and I'd come home from school. What was I then? 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade? No, 7th grade. I'd come home and get my pencils and my paper, and because they could play only country music, they would get all of this, what you would refer to as today as Muzak, elevator music. And I love this music. If you look it up on Spotify, put it in your Google search bar, it is so much fun, this music. It's an imaginary world that I lived in. And all of the famous artists that I learned to love, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Nat King Cole, Jerry Vale, Jack Jones. Jack Jones sings a song called Live for Life that to this day gives me stars in my eyes and makes my heart flutter. Anyway, those were my friends, my people. That was the music that I listened to, and I was able to write. I started having notebooks and journals, and I wrote, and I withdrew and started to love myself in that way. But I became very, closed off, and started to focus on fairy tales, looking for validation in another that was going to save me or rescue me. Remember the Disney movie, The Rescuers? That song, Who Will Rescue Me? Oh, I hear that song. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. And we can get into this place if we're not careful and we hand over our lives. I mean, okay, I'm not discounting that thing called COVID that we underwent a year or so ago, because people did die, but let me tell you something. People that passed away from that were ready to leave. They were ready to leave this earth. They were tired and they were ready to go home. But think about how much we allowed the government to dictate our lives and tell us what to do. I was able to avoid a lot of it because I worked at home. But my kids, my daughter worked in a vet hospital. Where was my son working at the time? Oh, my son worked at Trader Joe's. And talk about that company. That company is one of my most favorite of all places that just is magical, that has things about it that are extremely wonderful for people, creative to the nth degree. Love Trader Joe's. But they were so, oh my goodness, strict. Anyway, I'm getting off in a place I don't want to go. My son does not work there anymore. It was a place we realized we would rather shop. We'd rather shop there than he worked there. It wasn't good for him. But I'm saying that when you become small in your mind and hurt and pain invades your space, and you get down and out and you get sick and you withdraw, you are allowing that from the outside world. And you don't have to. Now, when you're a kid and you're in school and you fight back, not all the time are adults going to believe you. I was terrified that, in my case, that principal wouldn't believe me. I'm not even sure I told my mother everything, because you know why? You know, when we tell kids today, open your mouth and tell somebody. Don't hide it. Speak your truth. Because people are terrified, or kids are terrified, that if they tell somebody, they're going to get it 10 times worse. You get freaked out. And that was me. I freaked out big time. And I thought that this woman who was my teacher she really had it in for me. And what did I do to, what is that saying? If you can't beat them, join them. I started hugging her every day after school, thinking that it would help. It hurt me more. She treated me worse. Anyway, so that's a little glimpse into my childhood. And I started to carry that with me as I became older. And then I realized it wasn't too much longer after that, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We soon moved from North Carolina because my mother we couldn't survive there, because it was a man's world there during that time. And we were a sinking ship, and we had to come to California because we had nobody there. We had family here in California, and so we had a big yard sale. The people from our church, one of them was Mr. Blanks. He was a deacon in our church, and he also was the manager at a fast food place like In-N-Out. And my mother worked there at night. It was called Hardee's. And she could bring us in to eat. We could have all the bread, condiments, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, tomatoes. We could have French fries. We could not have the burger patty. We had to pay for that. But all the rest of the stuff, you know, to drink, we could have that. So she'd bring us in there. Her friend would bring us and her kids in for dinner. That's what we ate for dinner. But the meat we had to pay for. And, you know, anyway, we left. He helped with our yard sale, and we drove. It took us 7 days to drive. She had a 1968 Plymouth. She had the three of us and our dog, and we drove here to get away from my dad because he didn't care. He didn't care what happened to us, and she couldn't afford it by herself. He simply didn't take care of us. And I'm not positive, but I think he's passed on. I don't know. But we came here to live with my great-grandma. And that's for the next part of the story, and how my life went and how it has gone up until about 8 years ago, until I finally bloomed and came back into my reality and my strength and realized, let me move this out of the sun, realized that, let me stand up, that if anybody makes it good for you, it's you. Don't put your hands, your life, into anybody else's, because they're not going to love you the way you love yourself. And as I tell my kids, don't give the keys of your car to anybody. I mean, they're old enough to drive now. So when they were younger, I'd say, don't get off your bicycle and give it to anybody else. Because why? You have places to go. You have things you want to do. That's your bicycle. This is your life. You know who you are. You love yourself. That's where it starts, my friends. My beautiful soul family. It starts with you loving you. And when you love you, your world is going to explode in bloom like the glorious butterfly bush, nature around you. The trees don't ask anybody if they can sing, or the birds don't ask anyone if they can sing, they just sing. The trees provide shade. Why? Because they open their arms, they're happy. Flowers that bloom. See that yellow Jerusalem sage over there? That's my vegetable box. I can't see it. There it is. They don't ask for permission. They just do it. They just be. Will you be too? Got it? I'm going to be back with part number 3 of how I got to where I am today. Out of that mind haze that I was in, that belief that I was not worthy, that untruth that I lived with. God bless each and every one of you. You reach inside of you, who is a part of God's source. You're a piece of that gigantic puzzle. And you be who you are, and you love who you are. You guys have a beautiful rest of the day. I'll be back soon with part number 3.